Everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and this past week has been filled with news about AirPower maybe making a return, Apple's digital ID, upcoming changes with iPhones, Apple Glass, and much more. This is your news update for the week of November 28th, 2021. And the first thing has to do with Apple introducing a new Mac upgrade program. So if you have a business and you apply for this upgrade program, you may be able to pay monthly for about 3% of the overall cost. And you can see the different prices here on CIT's website. So anything from a 13-inch MacBook Air to the latest 16-inch MacBook Pro, ranging from $30 per month to $75 per month, depending on the actual device. And so you'll see it says pay just 3% of the Mac notebook cost each month. Apply today to get started. This can be very helpful for different people that have Macs at their business and maybe need to change them every few years. So it's a sort of similar change to what Apple did with iPhones for the public, but this is for businesses only. Now, Apple's AirPower is something we've been seeing for many, many years. In fact, Apple introduced it with the iPhone 8 and iPhone 10, but then sort of canceled it or seemingly canceled it a little bit later. According to Mark Gurman, Apple is still working on AirPower, also short and long distance wireless power and reverse wireless charging for the future, where maybe Apple is trying to make everything charge together, according to Mark Gurman. Where maybe imagine an iPad charging an iPhone, then an iPhone charging AirPods, or maybe even an Apple Watch on the back. iPhone has MagSafe around the back, and you'll see it sort of allows the AirPods case, the AirPods 3 case here, to snap to the back of it. Imagine where you could reverse wireless charge this. Now, we've seen this on some other products. We've seen this with their battery pack that goes on the back, being able to reverse wireless charge. It's easy to do. They just need to implement it in software. However, wireless charging, like they had on AirPower, is something that hasn't really been done yet other than by Nomad. So Nomad that makes this watch band here, they've done something similar to that, and I would love to see Apple do that in their own way. Even wireless charging from a short distance, maybe from the end of your iMac or something else, just charging your iPhone as you sit next to it. However, there are inherent inefficiencies to actually doing that, but we've seen this over and over, usually at CES every year where they show that off. But either way, I would love to see some sort of charging change in the future, not just MagSafe on the back of it. Now, recently, Apple and Google were fined $11 million in Italy for implementing what Italy calls aggressive methods in commercial use of data without consent. However, this seems to be against everything Apple stands for, and Apple actually made a counter argument to that, saying, "We believe the authorities' view is wrong and will be appealing the decision. Apple has a long-standing commitment to privacy of our users, and we work incredibly hard to design products and features that protect customers' data. We provide industry-leading transparency and control to users so that they can choose what information to share or not, and how it is used. Apple has implemented this in many different ways with privacy, with app tracking transparency, and different options to turn off requests to track from different applications. And so to be fined for something like this doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense, at least based off what we have here. We even have the app privacy report and the ability to turn off Apple advertising if you want. You can have targeted ads, but you can just turn them off, and we choose this. So they're being fairly transparent with this, and we just have the option. So you can see view ad targeting information and just turn it off. You won't receive any of that on an iPhone. So it's odd to see them sort of be fined for something they are so sort of particular about protecting. Now, this past week in Turkey, Apple actually halted sales due to the currency actually falling in value. And so this is something that was halted not only in stores, but also online. However, later that day or the following day, Apple resumed sales, but with a 25% price increase, according to different sources. So it looks like Apple had to change the pricing, unfortunately, in that country due to the value of the currency compared to the United States and elsewhere. So this is a bit unfortunate. I would love if everything was the same everywhere, but many people have asked me in different places around the world why Apple charges differently, and it's typically due to taxes or different currency values in those different countries compared to maybe the United States or China or elsewhere. So it really depends there, but unfortunately they had to bump the price. Hopefully that situation will change, but it was just something to note that seemed to be all over the news this past week. Now, the upcoming digital ID has been delayed to 2022. Last week, we heard a little bit about this, where you'd be able to use your license and maybe use this in the airport through TSA. That seems to be one of the first places it will be implemented in the United States, but it has to be secure. However, Apple has delayed it and officially changed it on their iOS 15 preview website, where it says coming early 2022. So whether that's with iOS 15.2 or iOS 15.3 or some other version is hard to say. However, the code started appearing in iOS 15.2. So maybe we'll see that release later on, or maybe earlier than that. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. Now, today is Cyber Monday, and many of you asked in my last video that I continue to cover maybe different discounts and sales that there are on Apple products. And so being Cyber Monday in the United States, we typically have a bunch of deals and discounts. Now, last week, Apple had some discounts on Amazon.com where they had AirPods 3, AirPods 2, AirPods Pro, and AirPods Max up to $120 off for the AirPods Max. These sales are still going on, and I'll link those in the description. However, there are all sorts of different phone deals, from the iPhone 13 Pro coming with free AirPods if you sign up for a new phone on T-Mobile, to some carriers such as Verizon offering free iPhone 13 minis with an unlimited plan. So there's a bunch of different deals from different carriers, and also Apple has their own where they'll give you a gift card for certain purchases. So you'll see get a $50 Apple gift card with an eligible model of iPhone purchase or different trade-ins and more. So you can check those out on apple.com. I'll leave some links to some other deals as well. And there's deals on everything from M1 Max to iPads and more. So quite a few deals today. Again, I'll link a few of those in the description, or if you just go to Amazon, there's those AirPods deals and there's other deals elsewhere. So quite a few things going on today. Most of them seem to be about $100 off of Max or $200 off of Max if you're trying to pick up an M1 MacBook Pro or something like that. Now, last week I talked a little bit about Apple making their own modems, and it seems like there's even more news about this, where Apple is working with TSMC, or Taiwan Semiconductor. They make the chips for Apple, such as M1 and more, and they're ramping up production for Apple's new 5G modems to replace the Qualcomm modems. Apple owns a lot of different patents for Intel modems that they used before, and ultimately they would want to probably not pay royalties to Qualcomm for 5G and have better control over the chipset itself. This could lead to increased battery life and reliability, since Apple has more control over the chipset itself. Now, the unfortunate thing is it looks like it won't be an iPhone 14, but rather maybe iPhone 15 and beyond, with what would be 2023, sometime around that time frame, where they would have enough time to ramp up production, get them in the new iPhones, make sure everything's set with the software and ready to go. So it looks like Apple is working on that, but it will be some time before we see that. Now, as far as iOS 15.2, quite a few people have messaged me today asking if we would see a beta update today. And based on today, again, being a holiday or the start of Hanukkah, quite a few people were asking if we would see it, but typically we'll see it on Tuesday or Wednesday. So I would expect iOS 15.2 release candidate or maybe beta 4 tomorrow. And the reason I say release candidate, and I covered this in my follow-up video, but the release candidate is typically one release away from a final release. So we could see the release candidate as soon as tomorrow with a final release the following week, or beta 4, then a release candidate, then the final release sometime on the week of the 13th or the 12th, where we'll have a final version before Apple goes on vacation for the holidays or around Christmas. Typically, that's what we'll see. I would expect maybe one more beta and then a release candidate, or maybe we'll just jump straight to the release candidate and have a final release. But we'll have to wait and see what Apple does. Again, I would expect some sort of update probably tomorrow, maybe Wednesday at the latest, something along those lines. Now, in a recent video I had, I talked about maybe Apple having a separate app for AirPods to allow you to see the different things that it can do, as well as have an easy way to update it. 9to5Mac has made a concept about it, showing what it could look like if you had a separate AirPods app. And that's something that I think makes a lot of sense. We could have something to control noise cancellation, or maybe different options such as Find My, or the software update. That makes a lot of sense to me. I hope Apple does something like this in the future, since we have an app already to control Apple Watch, update it, and more. With AirPods being increasingly used, as well as many different versions, it makes a lot of sense to have an easier way to connect them, and then maybe set different options for spatial audio and more. So they've come up with some ideas. I think it makes a lot of sense. Hopefully we see this in the future. And as far as future products, Apple sort of hinted at augmented reality or virtual reality devices in a recent interview with Tim Cook. If you've watched this interview, you'll see that 9to5Mac again says, Tim Cook talks DIY repair announcement and Apple's next big thing in the new interview. He hints that they're sort of seeing the future with augmented reality and virtual reality, and that they're sort of making a big play toward that. Apple has not released a product other than the iPhone that does augmented reality, where you can do that with the cameras on the iPhone or iPad, but maybe having glasses or a headset seems to make a lot of sense. And in a recent note from Ming-Chi Kuo, he says that it's coming in late 2022, where it will have similar power to an M1 Mac, such as this M1 Mac 13-inch, and have something like that, along with 4K micro OLED displays from Sony, and it will not be required to tether to an iPhone or Mac to use it. That makes a lot of sense. If Apple can put that chip right in it, you wouldn't need a tethered device other than maybe for data, but Apple has an aim of replacing iPhone within 10 years, according to Kuo. I'm not so sure about that, as I don't know that everyone would want to wear glasses or a VR or augmented reality headset, but I think iPhone will be around for quite some time. But if they have a better way of implementing the user interface, maybe having touch controls or virtual touch controls that work seamlessly, it would be maybe in response to Facebook's Meta or the Metaverse with their virtual reality and Oculus. So I can't wait to see what Apple has. We may only be about a year away from seeing what that is, or less than a year away, and I can't wait to see that. Apple's been talking, or at least been rumored to have this for quite some time, and it looks like Apple is talking more and more about virtual reality and augmented reality. So I can't wait to see that. Now, when it comes to the future of Mac with M1, we've had everything from the M1 MacBook Air to the M1 MacBook Pro to the new 16-inch, but we've yet to see an iMac Pro or a new Mac Pro. And it looks like the future versions of that, according to DylanDKT, may have multiple M1 chipsets, so maybe 2 M1 Max chips, maybe 128 gigabytes of RAM, and much more. So with a chassis that's much larger than an iPhone or MacBook, we could see some incredible power from them since you can cool them more efficiently. It's said to look like an iMac with the combination of an iMac and Pro Display XDR. That makes a lot of sense. And then a Mac Pro that could look like a Mac Mini or maybe the old G4 Cube. Those things seem to be coming in the future, maybe between March and June of next year. That would make 2 years since Apple announced M1, and it makes a lot of sense that we would see something by then, since they said they would sort of transition everything within that 2-year time frame. So I can't wait to see those. Of course, it would have Apple's new mini LED display, be super bright, and be able to sort of make the way toward HDR for everyone. So that's everything from this past week. Quite a bit of news, of course. It's a holiday, or it was in the United States, so not as much news as before, but some exciting things coming for hopefully iPhone, iOS, and more. Let me know what you're looking most forward to in the comments below, and of course, if you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, I'll link it in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already, though, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.